The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall. I play Hera Syndulla on Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you always.
You're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, episode 142.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Mike Creavey, aka Old Ben, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Please be sure to share this podcast on Twitter or Facebook and let us know how we're doing by leaving us a review. And tonight we're trying something a little bit different. And basically, if you're listening to this, it means it is on or after December 27th, 2022. So we're releasing this just after Christmas. We're recording it before. So first of all, Merry Christmas to all of you. And if you're listening to it some other time of year, well, you know, Christmas greetings to you at that time of year as well. So, but what we want to do here in anticipation of New Year's is something, like I said, different, maybe even a little bit wacky. So as we're all aware, the New Year, just being a few days around the corner, means countless of people are going to be considering whether or not to take on one of those pesky New Year's resolutions. And that got me thinking recently, what if some of our friends in that galaxy far, far away did the same? What if some of our favorite Star Wars characters, even the bad guys, just decided to take a moral inventory, you know, try to turn over a new leaf, do something this new year to improve just a little bit? What might that look like? So that's what we're jumping into tonight for just something a little different, some wild, wacky speculation. And tonight it's going to be me, your host, Mike Creavey, and joining me, Jason Eugea. How are you doing?
I am so blessed. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. It's just the two of us. We were hoping to have Patrick on with us tonight too, but he's traveling, so he couldn't make it, unfortunately. But I definitely want to see if we can get his list, some of his speculation, maybe after the fact, and we can, you know, put that out later somehow. So, but did you? I don't suppose I always double check here. Did you get any ham solo opportunities lately?
No, the last one I did was back when Bad Batch Season 1 was on. I got to put Fennec Shand at the drive-thru at the Chick-fil-A. Nice. And the guy got it. He thought it was funny.
He did? Oh, cool. Yeah. I usually get these just blank stares because they just, you know, they don't call it out the place I normally do it. But this time around, the deli was the kiosk I normally use to type it in, and then I take a picture and send it to everybody. The kiosk was malfunctioning, so I was like, I don't know, I don't want to go. I sort of chickened out. I mean, maybe I'll be more brave next time. But I was actually just going to put The Bad Batch, since that's our next show coming up. So,
well, hopefully they wouldn't give you a bad batch of food.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, like, would they be allowed to put that on a ticket? I don't know. So yeah. I guess before we jump in, I don't know. Do you have any background, Jason, with New Year's resolutions, good or bad, or just do you tend to do them at all? I was just curious.
Even when I try, they don't last. I tried to do Bible in a year.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm really hoping to get catechism in a year this year. I think that'll be good for us. So,
is that the Father Mike Schmitz one?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
He's doing catechism in a year, so I'm going to try to get our parish involved and
very cool.
Do that. So we'll see.
I forget. I'm sure some listener would know the actual stat, but I think we've all heard that stat before about gym memberships, you know, like spiking in January and then dramatically dropping off. Like
there's always a lot of advertisements. That's for darn sure.
Well, and it's funny because it's in a way, I think it kind of goes to the heart of Star Wars in some ways, that, you know, there is this this motif, I think, all throughout Star Wars about character development. You know, sometimes it's not done so well, but I think a lot of times it is done really well, or they've done a really good job, I think, lately of really trying to have these complex characters who are kind of, trying to find their way. So at least maybe in that regard, we have a opportunity here to look at some characters where nobody's perfect. Where's some places we think these guys could, maybe improve if they so wanted to do so. But
I think we could all stand to use a little bit of improvement.
Yeah. Well, so what I did here, I just picked 10. This was like, I think hopefully, well, I won't say hopefully no one from work is listening. I hope people from work do listen to the Secrets of Star Wars, but I do have to admit, I came up with probably 2/3 of these in a faculty meeting. I probably should have been paying, but I think they're having a debate about whether or not we should have a coffee machine in the faculty lounge. And I'm like, I have a Keurig on my desk, so I just sort of sat there. I'm like, let's work this out. But I don't know why these particular 10 characters came to my mind, but what I did is I basically picked 10 characters from across the Star Wars universe, animated stuff, feature films, all in some of the series, all sorts of different corners of the galaxy far, far away, and came up with my list. Jason has not seen he's seen the list of the characters, and we have both independently come up with some suggestions for what we think their New Year's resolution might look like. So that's how this is. We're gonna go down the list. I'll say the character, and maybe we can alternate. Maybe I'll start with you, and then if I remember, have you go first on the odd numbers, and I'll go first on the evens. Something like that. Is that
okay?
Fair game.
Sounds good.
So first up is Watto, our somewhat shady dealer friend from Tatooine from episodes 1 and 3. I don't know if he showed up in anything else. Was he ever in Clone Wars? Did they ever bring him back?
I haven't seen all of the Clone Wars, but I
don't remember
the shows that I've seen. I've never seen him in it.
Okay, so people mostly know him from Phantom Menace and from oh no, I guess it wasn't episode 3. It was a Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones when Anakin and Padme go back. Right. So shout out to Father Andrew Kinstetter. He hangs in there with that being his favorite one. That's his favorite Star Wars film. So what do you think? What do you think Watto might be able to consider doing here?
I'm thinking most people listening are gonna think this one's pretty obvious. That guy needs to quit gambling. If I were him, that would be my New Year's resolution, because even if he does have all the parts, he's the only one in the outer rim that's got one, right? That's what he tells Qui-Gon. I'm the only one that's got one. But he doesn't sell it. He gambles it away. He's not making any money. So it's no surprise that 10 years later, he's sitting there going, hey, I need your help. I got some deadbeats that owe me some money.
Well, no surprises here. I did, in fact, put it down as well. I was saying something like maybe he could try to challenge himself to make some kind of charitable donation. Every time he makes some sort of fall with his gambling. I don't know what a Tatooine's equivalent of like the Daughters of Ferrix would be. But if there's some sort of like local Tatooine community, group, he can donate to them whenever he falls with his gambling. Because he did
donate water to the needy.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny because he does look pretty ragged, right? When Anakin and Padme show back up, he's not taking good care of himself, and
yeah, he doesn't have any more. He doesn't have any more of his slaves or anything else.
And we don't know.
He's not doing too good.
He's sitting outside that little sort of kiosk out there. I don't know if he lost his shop or if it's just he's in a different little part of it or what. But so, well, I think that one's pretty clear cut. But the next one, I'm kind of excited to jump into here because you could do a couple things with these guys. I'm curious what you had to say. But for this one, we were looking at the Rebels crew. I should say the Ghost crew, I guess, from Rebels. So, you have these. I mean, these are good guys, right? They're out there. They're fighting to help. Eventually, at least
from a certain point of view.
Yes, yeah. They start off kind of as their own, with their own interests in mind in a lot of ways, but gradually become more involved in trying to help fight the injustice of the Empire. They're doing all of this good. But if there's one thing I thought, there's an awful lot of carabasts floating around that ship, and they're always yelling that out, and I'm always laughing, and you have this hilarious like fake swear word that's basically invented, and they're all saying it,
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, well, what about a swearing jar for the ghost crew? Like I could even see the image of it. It's just sitting up there, on a shelf or something every time, they're having a shootout. You don't do it right away. You got to finish the battle. But then, Zeb's back there like,
oh, yeah, he's going to be broke.
Some credits into the jar. That was mine.
I went a little more serious on that one. I was saying they, maybe they could try to be more willing to work with other rebel cells. For a lot of that, they tried to do things their own way. And we saw that a lot with some of the rebel cells recently in Andor. Everybody just wanted to do their own thing. And some of the, like Nemik's manifesto was telling them, we got to work together. We can't just do this alone. So
yeah,
that's kind of where I went with that one coming right off of Andor, was maybe they'd be more willing to work together with others. And
sure.
Maybe if they would have, would Kanan still be with us or whatever. So
yeah, it makes you wonder, because you definitely, I don't think they as a crew quite come across as gray area or as gritty, of course, as some of these groups in Andor,
sure.
which of course is earlier on, and we are, moving in that direction. But, that does seem to be pretty much right up until, if the way Rogue One, shows it, like right up until the actual attack on the Death Star. Like it seems to me like the Death Star mission, or the plans, the Death Star plan seems to be this culminating, watershed moment where from then on it seems more of the norm for these rebel groups to unite, whereas before that they're still kind of all over the place. But
maybe Rogue One was the uniting factor.
It might have been. I thankfully, like, I can't really imagine, Hera and Kanan and them basically letting like a Krieger, type, group be destroyed to hide a source, and it's like, oh my goodness.
Right.
So, but still some growing to do. Now this next one, I'm curious what you said, because this was tricky for me, and I'm not sure I really like the one I came up with, but it's, I'm going to kind of explore a little bit. And it, of course, brings up potential fun speculation on the nature of artificial intelligence and the soul and self-improvement, all these kinds of things. So C-3PO.
Well, that one, if I were C-3PO, I would feel kind of stagnant only knowing 6 million forms of communication. So I would want to learn a few more languages.
Some Duolingo or something. That, I can't believe I did that is good. Mine, the way I had it worded was something to the effect of, this is the one out of the 10 of these I was sort of least happy with, but I said something to the effect of, I was thinking he's a very frightened sort, he's always very nervous and very, anxious and I forget what Leia says to him exactly at the beginning of Last Jedi. She just says something like, wipe that whatever, expression off your face. I forget what the word is she uses, but that nervous expression, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Which, of course, is funny because he has a solid, never-changing expression, but somehow Anthony Daniels gets that across through him. So I was thinking, one of these things where, to do one scary or challenging thing every day, Now, he does in the movies. He's always, there, but I feel like day to day, if it's he's kind of like hanging back, a little just, resistant on the side, which it reminds me of, I'm not a big fan of spiders, and I was reading something years ago, and it was about fear or whatever, and somehow that one came up, and they're like, well, you could go outside and find a spider and catch it and like look at it and hold it, and I'm like, no. Like, I'm not going to do that. Right. Yeah. It's like, no, thank you. But by the same token, I just, even as a dad right now with 2 young daughters, I'm trying to, fumbling around while I do it, but I'm trying to sort of, with our eldest especially, she tends to be a little more timid and kind of gets fixated sometimes when she gets scared of stuff. And, I'm trying to find ways to challenge her to, kind of go outside her comfort zone a little bit. I don't know if that's the best idea. Sometimes I try to figure that out with her, but fear's a funny thing.
Line. Parenting, there's always a fine line with everything.
Oh my gosh. How many kids do you have?
3.
Is that okay? What are their ages or age range roughly?
I have a boy and a girl. They're 18. They're in college now. And then my youngest daughter is junior. She's 16.
Okay. So you've navigated those early childhood waters and have some good experience on here.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to walk that fine line between, the secular world and the faith world, and keep them on the right side, all that.
Sure.
Lots of prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, and I think, oddly enough, I'm going to try to find a way to connect this to our next one in a funny way I didn't anticipate. But to do that, I have a general question first. Have you read any of the, how many of the Star Wars novels? Like, have you gotten into the novels at all?
I read the audiobooks. The first 3 that Timothy Zahn did in the 90s. And then I just finished his new Thrawn series that lead up to Rebels.
Okay.
And then, I know it's still Legends, but Darth Plagueis.
That's
really
okay.
Good.
That's the one I was going to ask about. I was looking up the author. I can never remember. It's James Luceno, but for some reason, the name that always pops in my head when I'm about to say it is Max Lucado, which it's not. I
don't know why I keep getting that in my head too.
I think I've said that twice on previous shows. But the reason I was going to ask about that is because the next one I have on the list is Palpatine. And in that book, of course, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't read it, but, it gives this backstory of Palpatine really from his teen years. And I think he's in his teens when he has this, burst of dark side rage and kills his whole family and stuff. And I don't
even think he realized he was Force sensitive before that.
Right. Yeah. And it really, and I was thinking, this is, not at all to put a grim sort of shadow over us just talking about our children, but, it is funny side stories. I was thinking about, sometimes, you, every little thing you say, or if you punish just the way that, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done it that way or something later. And you're always maybe not always, but at least for me, somewhat routinely oh man, is this gonna, have this huge impact on my kid for the rest of their life? Or sometimes you beat yourself up with that. And I have to laugh though, because the very first thing that I ever did really with our daughter Noelle, when we brought her home from the hospital, it was about a year after Force Awakens had come out. So we're trying, I'm trying to, help mommy get some sleep. And so a lot of those first nights, I just sort of was able to get some sleep on the couch, holding the newborn and just have TV on or whatever. And I'm watching Force Awakens, and she of course can't really see it or understand it. She's only a few days old, but I've had a couple good laughs over the years. It's was it a good idea to have the first movie my daughter ever saw have a patricide scene? And then of course when she was 2 and she's we're playing with lightsabers, or we see him at Target, there were a few, and she picks out the Kylo Ren one. And I'm
she didn't point it at you, did she?
She not at me, but she points at that. I'm not that one. But but with Palpatine, I my funny one here that I was going to say was, it's just this guy's just so evil, he's so caught up in this completely utilitarian, controlling kind of spirit, right? This ultimate Sith. And I think, even though he came from a beautiful planet from Naboo, I think he should just spend a lot more time by the sea this year. If, I was one of those silly Star Wars Lego movies, and Vader and Palpatine go to the shore. And I was actually wait a minute, if Palpatine had just spent some more time by the sea, the calming effect of the waves, engaging with the truth, goodness, and beauty of creation, or whatever they call it. I don't know. So, so that's my silly one. I don't know if what you had.
Well, I was of the opinion that, becoming a better person's not in that guy's vocabulary, you know. So I figured if he's going to make a resolution that he should abandon the cloning path to immortality, and actually, if I were him, I would actually try to, you know, seek out, you know, physical and, you know, true immortality for himself rather than cloning. But it seems like that's where they're going in almost every series. There's something hinting at that, you know, and we see that's where it ends up in the Rise of the Skywalker.
Yeah. I'm excited for, and, you know, I know there's a lot of debate out there about what might be retcon or potential, like, you know, damage control over sequels and stuff. And a lot of that, you know, sometimes I'll listen to some of that and a lot of it makes sense. But at the end of the day, a lot of times I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what goes on at Lucasfilm. I don't think very few people
I don't get to make the movies.
You know, so I'm not going to speculate too much on that. But I think, we've seen, you know, like these cloning hints in this sort of subplot with all the Kaminoans, right, in Bad Batch, and that.
Well, and where it ended up, you know, right at the very end, they go to Mount Tantus, you know, right. And of all the things, you know, you could put so many things in a post credits. Sometimes it's just a throwaway gag. You know, you could have, you know, Wrecker and Omega eating more Mentel mix, or it could just be something silly, you know. But like that, I thought was neat. And then, you know, of course, in Mandalorian with these the cloning pods and stuff we saw, even in Kenobi, some of the stuff with the questions about all of those Jedi, or like, are they in that amber? Like, it was even like a Jurassic Park kind of, you know, like just keeping them in suspension.
Petrified, you know. So I think that they're making it pretty clear that they're trying to flesh that out more. And then there was the, I can't think of that. It was one of the newest novels, something, I'll look it up, something Sith. Shadow of the Sith, Adam Christopher, just came out, I think, last summer. And I read that one. I was I did an audiobook on a long drive to a retreat. And that was interesting because that one really, you know, developed some of that
what
backstory.
Time period was it set in?
So it's set, I think it's like 17 years or so after Return of the Jedi, you know, so like 13 or something before Force Awakens. So Luke is like this, you know, kind of at the peak of his power, and he's, you know, Ben Solo is under training at that time with him. He's not in the novel much, but Luke and Lando go on sort of an adventure to sort of track down. He's having these visions, or basically he's getting transported in these dreams or visions to Exegol. And it basically is some of the backstory of what Lando talks about at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker when they're looking for that Ochi, you know, Sith cultist kind of guy or whatever, or the guy that had the dagger. You know, they find his body in the pit. So it gives that backstory, you know, and I couldn't help but think, like, as I'm listening to it, I'm like, see this, it's like this is great. Like, it makes Rise of Skywalker a little more integrated, I think, and makes a little more sense. But that's always that thing. Like, if you need that to do it,
right?
You know, like, but no, yeah, Palpatine, that might be a throwaway one. You know, he certainly doesn't seem to be too interested in.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think becoming a better person's in his vocabulary.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Bad Batch, and I'll give you this one to kick off with on the next one here. So, Crosshair, who's one of my favorite characters, like someone who I really don't have any idea where they're going to take his character. Like, if he's redeemed, it will make sense to me. If he's not, it will make sense to me. Yeah. Like, I really, I can't think of another character that's so far as that sort of satisfying to just like not know, you know, where he's going to go, or it's not super predictable. But what did you think with him?
Well, I think his New Year's resolution is going to be trying to understand why the rest of Clone Force 99 is rebelling against their new empire. You know, he wants, I think, now that we know, spoiler alert, now that we know that he doesn't have his chip, you know, he's of the mindset that the empire is a good thing. So he wants to understand why they think it's not.
And it's funny because he, you know, I'll throw my funny one out first just for the heck of it, and then go back to more serious. But mine was, he's just so, I said, he's so wound up, you know. I said he needs to like enroll in like a Bob Ross painting class or something, you know, just to like put the rifle down, man. Like just, you know, put some pretty birds in there, you know, just like calm down here, you know, like explore something different. No, but it's I was really surprised when he said, you know, that, you know, his chip was, you know, he took his chip out a long time ago.
Yeah, they got me on that one.
Yeah, and he didn't say, what does he say? He said, you know, my chip's already out or something. They're like, when did you take it out? And he's like, doesn't matter. You know, so it's like, you don't even know. Like his might have been out the whole time.
Yeah, before Order 66. Yeah,
that's like so crazy. Which is funny because it simultaneously makes it more, depending on how I look at it, I feel sometimes like more or less likely that they'll be able to get through to him. You know, because in one sense, it's like, well, there's no external, like the devil made me do it thing to worry about. Like it's, you know, there's not any excuse.
He's made moral
that.
Choices now.
Yeah, but by the same token, it's like, but he really wants to do this. And I really did love the way they built that up at the very end of that season, because that show is, and this is just me, people can laugh at me if they want, that's okay, everyone has, that's a big galaxy here. I really thoroughly enjoyed Andor, but just personally, I'm personally looking more forward to the Bad Batch season 2.
I am too.
Than I was, and I think you know, I don't think I'm what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think I'm like a shallow TV show watcher, and by that I mean like someone who's like, just give me popcorn. I don't want any depth. I don't want to use my brain. You're like, well, no, I think there's a lot of pretty thought-provoking things in the Bad Batch, and it's just a different sort of flavor. I think for me, I've especially really liked how well they've done at making it a show that an adult doesn't even remotely have to feel like you have to explain that you're watching a cartoon. Like I really think that's different, right, than it was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, because even then it's like there's some animated thing and I'm like, oh, what are you watching? Oh, I'm watching this for research. You know, it's like, you know.
No, I mean, with Clone Wars and Rebels, especially when I started listening to you guys on the podcast and started watching Rebels, man, I was hooked. And
yeah,
it was, you know, you almost forget that it's animation because it's Star Wars, you know, and it fits so well into everything that we already know.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about it a lot. We'll talk about it more too, because actually our next, those of you listening right after this comes out or close to when this comes out, you know, our next thing up, of course, is getting into Bad Batch season 2, and I had to jump on as soon as I could. I actually signed up for the kickoff episode because it's like, let's do this. But one thing I noticed about it was just right off the get-go, I don't know how someone like D. Bradley Baker can possibly do what he does, you know, because it's like, you know, unless I specifically remember or actively think about the fact as I'm watching it that like one guy is doing the voice of, you know, sometimes all or like 2/3 of the people I'm seeing in a given episode. It's like, man, what's it like being with that guy at like, you know, parties and stuff? He just,
who are you now?
Yeah, full conversations with himself or like, well, I don't know. So, well, and the next up one we had, who of course is someone else. There's a lot of overlap with some of these of course. So Saw Gerrera, and Saw, who we of course saw in, well, I guess he first showed up in.
I think it was Clone Wars, wasn't it?
Clone Wars, yeah, because I think he was at the time they were saying, I hadn't watched Clone Wars yet when I first saw Rogue One, and then I went back and I watched. So I knew I had seen something about him or seen some clips or something, but I didn't know the whole story with him until I had seen Rogue One, and then I went back and watched Clone Wars. But I believe he was, unless I'm mistaken, the first animated character who they introduced then into one of the live action films. Actually, I think someone would correct me and say it was Boba Fett from the holiday special. But other than him, but yeah, so Saw, of course, profoundly not untrustworthy, maybe I guess, but untrusting, right? Paranoid. Yeah. My joke resolution here with him was weekly trust building exercises or something like the YMCA, or the ones you have to like fall back into like someone behind you catches you. But in a more serious sort of vein here, I think it is trust related. It's hard to say, like if he would actually put himself in this position, to be vulnerable or to be willing to die. I guess it's hard to say because, he seems willing to fight and to die. Like he's kind of this reckless character. He's not afraid of death, but, to put that into some sort of actual effective means of building the rebellion. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, that's pretty much what I put down. I maybe worded it different, but I basically wrote that, his New Year's resolution would be to be more trusting and work with others in the alliance. Realize I'm not the only guy in this galaxy. It's a really big galaxy. Yeah. And I'm going to need help.
Well, I wonder if like Luthen didn't even make things worse, because it's like, so like Saw, now we know, like Saw, because we're behind the scenes and we see all this, Saw would have died. Probably. And all of his guys, if he went and did that Krieger mission. Yep. But I thought that was an interesting little development, like when Luthen goes there again and walks into Saw and all of them getting ready to go. Like he's changed his mind, because at first he wasn't going to do it. He's like, I don't trust him. I don't, Krieger, and he's this and he's that. So that was kind of like a bursting of that bubble, maybe, like here he is maybe about to go do this.
Right.
And all of his distrust is reinforced even more. Like
sends him to where we see him in Rogue One, where he doesn't trust the guy that defected,
Yeah. He's probably one of the characters I'm sort of most sympathetic to, I think, that's in that sort of gray area. Because I just I don't, every time I come back to Saw, I'm like, well, here's what he should do. It's like, I don't know.
Well, he needs, one of the things that threw him over the edge was when he lost his sister, I think, right?
Yeah.
So
was it Steela? I think it was her name.
He never got, as we'd say, he needs closure or something,
Yeah. And it makes you wonder, I don't know what's he really fighting for at this point, And
the fact that he wants to do it all himself, it almost seems like it's just pure vendetta.
Mm-hmm. And who does he even take it out on anymore? I mean, she's killed in that battle and it's been a long time since I saw it, but doesn't it, Ahsoka tries to save her, right? Or so it's one of those battles with the Separatists and that rock breaks or something and she falls off the cliff, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
she can't get to her. I
don't even remember.
It was something like that. But it's like, that's an interesting, so you're upset at the Separatists, but then the Separatists don't exist anymore. But now the people whose side you were on are now the Empire.
Yeah.
and it was all a big, game anyway. It's like, I definitely sympathize.
Well, this whole thing, it seems like the Empire, when the war is over, more people separate from the Empire than than there were Separatists to begin with. All these other Republic, ones that sided with the Republic are like, hold on a minute, we're on the wrong side now.
Yeah, it's like so confusing.
We won the war. Oh man.
Yeah, really? Like, great. Oh, and it's interesting too, because the with, well, and I love it's kind of like was it Tech, I think, that said it in Bad Batch? I was going back and watching season 1 again, because when they're talking about going to visit Cut, it was a Cut Locane, and his family out there, and he's like, you trust something like, you trust a deserter, and he's like, why not? We're deserters too.
Yeah.
And it's just this, everything, keeps getting turned upside down, and where do you find yourself? And that's actually a good theme that, we've hit on a few times, and I'm sure we'll hit on it even more, of like this allegiance thing, you know, and that goes back to Crosshair. And I think a lot of these people, it's like, who's your allegiance to? Like the Skeen, I think his name was, something weird like that in Andor.
Yeah,
you know, I'm a rebel. It's just me against everybody else, or something like that. You know,
he used that team for what he needed, and he was going to take everything that he could.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe Saw could reflect deeply on what exactly it is he's, you know, he's serving, you know, or what's his motive. I don't know. Maybe he knows, and we just never know, you know.
Well, I think
or
we
guess.
see it right at the very end in Rogue One. You know, when he realizes he can't fight no more, and okay, now it's time for you guys to go do it, and he sends Jin. Basically, Jin, in his mind, he's sending Jin off. Everybody else is just whoever's with her, you know.
What does he say? Something like save the rebellion, right? Save the dream, you know. Something, yeah. Well, these last couple are interesting here. So I thought, why not? Let's give it a try. So Jabba the Hutt.
All right, yeah, you got me stuck. I don't know how that guy's going to change. So I'm going to let you handle that one.
Mine was totally ridiculous. Like some sort of servant leader boss conference or something, like some kind of, you know, it's like the guy's a terrible boss. You know, he's just a very, very brutal. I don't even know how to describe. It's just a giant slug, you know. I mean, like, what do you do with him? So
and he's so dependent on everybody. He can't do nothing for himself.
Maybe we could get him into some kind of he's just like, he's spoiled, you know.
When everybody goes off fighting on the sail barge, he's left there helpless, and a little girl kills him.
Yeah, right. Much smaller than him, but it's funny because I think of his cousins, you know, or whatever they are, you know, and that was one of my favorite things in Book of Boba Fett was just the huge litter with these giants. It's like, goodness, like you guys are just the worst. So yeah, the Hutts, I don't know. Well, I don't really know that we're going to see them really develop any much, or do too much here. But the next one though, I do think there's some fun potential for Peli. So Peli Moto from Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, which I guess you can just say Mandalorian because everybody called that arc like Mandalorian
2.5.
Season 2.5. It was like an extended trailer for season 3 or something. So what do you think for Peli?
I think she's going to try to be more organized and stay on top of her business.
She don't seem distracted.
Yeah. Even, you know, she went out to get that ship for Din, and he comes to pick it up, and she's like, well, yeah, it's here. You got to help me finish it, but we got to start too.
Yeah, she kind of forgot about it, right? Like she's like, you know, he's like, you said something about a ship. She's like, yeah, that's what I said, and I sent you messages. He's like, that's here. Well, she said, I was thinking for her, and I hope they do this in season 3, you know, when they were having that little sidebar conversation working on the starfighter, the Naboo starfighter, and she just mentions in passing about how she's never been off world, you know, and she's like, yeah, I'm a local girl. And I was like, you know, I think Peli should travel off world at least once, you know, commit to whatever it is, like run some supplies somewhere to a nearby system, whatever, just get off Tatooine.
Well, unless she takes his ship by herself, it won't be in Din's ship. That thing's little bitty.
That's true. Yeah, she's not fitting in there. So I would love to see them find a way to, I don't know, like I guess you could overdo her character. I guess in that, I think if you put her in scenes that she doesn't belong in, like she does not belong on that Imperial cruiser at the end of season 2. You know, like,
oh yeah,
I'm gonna go fight with you guys and get like, no. But she fits in the chaos of like trying to just come and deliver, you know, Grogu to Din in the middle of that fight, you know, like
with the rickshaw and all that.
Yeah, that was like, so yeah, I think it would be a mistake to take her too far off world, but yeah, she could go somewhere.
And she's gonna start dating too, you know.
That's right. Yeah.
What was it? The Major Domo.
Yeah.
Isn't that who
That's
it was
right.
that
I
she
forgot about him.
Ends up ooh, he's cute.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I wonder if they'll have I would not be surprised to see, I mean, pretty much anybody that we saw in Book of Boba Fett, back somehow in Mandalorian. I don't know if they've confirmed any future Book of Boba Fett stuff because it was kind of a mixed bag, I gather, with some of the reception on that. But I guess the good thing about having it being an overlap is you get to bring those people in whenever you need them.
Yeah, and they introduced all of them in the Mandalorian, so
yeah,
it wouldn't be anything for them to just show up.
It reminds me a little of the pitch meeting guy, Ryan George on YouTube, who does those like goofy pitch. Have you ever seen those?
A few,
he plays the producer and the writer. Yeah. And he has one where he's like, I think it was the WandaVision one where he was breaking down the end. Did you see that, by the way? I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen WandaVision, skip the next 30 seconds.
Oh, I've seen WandaVision, yes.
Okay.
But not the pitch meeting.
But he says, when Vision at the end, the new version of Vision or whatever just flies off, like after he's sort of like become the real Vision or something, vague, and he just disappears dramatically. And I think it's the producer talking to the writer, and he's like, wait, where's he going? And then the writer says, off into the MCU to be retrieved at a later date whenever we need him. And I was like, hey, it has, they do it in Star Wars too sometimes, you're like,
all the time. Man, everybody keeps coming back to life.
Yeah. Or they just disappear for a while, and they're like, well, we haven't seen them in a while. Like the Martez sisters. I'd like to see them live action. They'll bring them in somewhere. They've grown on me. I thought they were a little much at first, but they're fun.
Yep, they fit in Bad Batch. When they showed up in Bad Batch, you're like, okay, I see it.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Now we normally, if there's any Star Wars news, we do it at the beginning. But I forgot about this, and some of it's there's always rumors and stuff. But the neatest rumor lately I've heard is that there are all kinds of, I guess there's chatter supposedly about the Ahsoka series covering multiple different time periods. And I think it was an interview. I guess it wasn't a rumor because I think Bryce Dallas Howard was specifically saying, I think she might be directing at least some of that. And she was saying that something like Clone Wars fans are going to be very excited, or there's something like that there's going to be some
I heard flashbacks. Different ages and different actresses playing her at different ages.
That'll be cool.
With Rosario Dawson playing the, I guess, current time frame.
The main one, yeah. Well, and I think they've been definitely playing around with that with some of the live action Clone Wars aesthetic, with like the temple flashback scenes, in Kenobi, or even some of the flashbacks with like Death Watch and some of the Clone Wars era droids and stuff in Mandalorian, and
if they do that, I know it might be considered fan service, but it sure would be neat to see Ashley Eckstein play her.
Oh, that would be so cool. I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, we do have 2 more to go here, and the next one is number 9 here, is Grand Moff Tarkin, a particularly interesting character. And there was a Tarkin novel, I want to say James Luceno might have written that too, or there was I think it was a Legends one. I'll double check here quick. But any thoughts on Grand Moff Tarkin?
I think Grand Moff Tarkin is going to set himself a goal to become the Emperor's right-hand man, regardless of who he has to step on to get there.
That sounds about right. Palpatine does always have a particular, I don't know, like trust. I mean, there's these things that show up, I think, in some of the canon material, in texts and novels and stuff like that. Textbooks? Yeah, no, novels. And in some of the, what am I trying to say? Some of the comics and stuff like that. From what I don't read those really, but
yeah,
there does seem to be this thing I've heard, in some audiobooks and novels and stuff where, there's always this like protection kind of, like the Emperor really does seemingly trust Tarkin obviously quite a bit, and has for a long time.
And Thrawn. And Tarkin sees Thrawn as a threat.
Yeah.
So another spoiler alert, in the last Thrawn novel series, he in the 3rd book of that series, Tarkin pits Krennic and Thrawn against each other. And he's like, I really don't, basically he's saying, I don't care who wins. Because as long as both of them fall, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, and his backstory is pretty cool in the Lucino novel, which I think came out. It was 2014. I was just looking at the date, so that would be after the Disney acquisition. So that one might be a canon novel. I think, but it depends on, I guess, when it was written or however the licensing and stuff works. But yeah, that his sort of rise to power is a really interesting story in that novel. So I recommend that to anyone who hasn't read it. I thought on a lighter note, I don't know what he has, the whole role, no matter who's playing him or, he's being described in a novel, it always goes back to Peter Cushing, who is just so iconic. And I was laughing because he, some of the behind the scenes stuff that I've seen over the years, and I'm sure a lot of listeners have too, it's just always funny to me that he's this, has this charming rapport with Carrie Fisher, and he's this iconic actor and she's this young, but it's nothing like what it is on screen. And he was talking about how, I guess he was pretty tall and he had these, I forget what size shoes he wore, but the boots were tremendously uncomfortable. Did you ever hear about that? I guess I just saw this recently. I love it. He has these slippers. Yeah, like he's like, because he's like, can you film it from, on their knees up or whatever? But I don't know if it was that. I was just thinking like, he does have this, he seems like a man of culture. Like he seems like he has this, sort of, probably, like whatever the galaxy's version of a classical education is. I don't know. Like I'm looking at Tarkin. I'm thinking, what's, he's just so, power hungry, and he's so bureaucratic. And I was like, you know what? I feel in my mind, my head canon, as we like to say, right? I feel like when he was young, he played the violin and he hasn't played in years, and maybe this year, just on a lighter note, he could just, maybe try to fit that back in the repertoire a little bit, take the edge off a little, it's really, really stressful to run the Death Star.
Well,
we're of course assuming this is before he gets blown up. No, but
well, he if you realize that he never did that very long. Yeah. It was Krennic's deal until he stole it, basically.
Yeah. Well, and how long could it be? What are we talking? A couple days? A couple weeks? Yeah. I mean, how long?
A couple weeks at most.
Like they basically go, it's like right after Scarif. Vader, they track him down. It's like, maybe a couple days max before, like, Han and them are captured on the Death Star. Yeah, I mean, he basically
they blow up Alderaan.
A week?
Yeah, I think they blow up Alderaan the day after the Battle of Scarif, right?
Yeah, it's very, very close. So yeah.
Maybe even later that day. I don't know.
Yeah, very. It's not a long. Well, I'll put it this way: if they ever put up like a plaque of like those we lost, back in like Imperial headquarters, so they have him there, and it's like Commander of Death Star or whatever, and then like the date, and then just the hyphen, and it's the same year, the same week, whatever it is. Well, then the last one I have on our list here of our top 10, and then if there's anyone else that comes to mind last minute, we could, but we'll probably wrap up here before too long. But the last one is one that I just couldn't resist. I for some reason he's stuck in my head. Max Rebo. Right. It's funny because I kept, like my wife was sort of laughing at me when we were watching the, I think it was the first episode where they go to the sanctuary in Book of Boba Fett. I think it was in there, and he's there off to the side. And I'm like, yeah, it's Max Rebo. Like, I knew it. He survived the Jabba's sail barge somehow. And here he is.
Now it makes you wonder if he survived the sanctuary.
And that's why my little joke, here for his New Year's resolution was I said be a little bit more discerning when it comes to taking gigs. Like don't take every single gig, that is if you're still alive.
Well, mine's similar. I said he needs to keep better company.
Yes. Oh, look,
he keeps getting himself in a position to be blown up, and he doesn't seem like he moves very fast.
No, I can't imagine. I'd love to see like some, I don't know, Seth Green will probably do, if he hasn't already, some sort of robot chicken thing with it or something. But like, I'm thinking to myself, I was never a professional musician. My dad was. I have a lot of friends, over the years who have been at some point. And it's tough. You gotta Sometimes you got to take the gig. But I don't know any who were blown up. So there's probably some better places he could find himself. Why is he stuck on Tatooine? What's going on here? You know?
I don't know.
So
it's not his home planet. I know that. So
well, I just always love the idea, like these very Lucas type things. The idea of having, like an elephant, basically, right? But make him little. Make it like a little blue elephant guy. That'll look different.
I think a lot of that goes back to. Did you ever watch that ILM series they put out on Disney Plus?
Yeah.
It basically shows a lot of it was, here's my vision, go do it. And he just left it to him, and they're like,
Paul Tippett and those guys are like,
so they're probably just sitting there thinking, I bet we could have this weird looking piano player guy. And let's just build that. Yep, that'll work. Okay, put him in there.
Max Rebo. I think you know what? This is, oh wow, the timeline just did something fun in my head here. Are the Star Wars Lego movies canon? I don't know what the deal is with those. Or are they just a joke?
I don't know, because Life Day seems to be a thing.
Because the Life Day Christmas one, Max Rebo's playing there, and that's the sequel trilogy crew.
Yeah.
So that's like 25 years after the Sanctuary blew up. So maybe he did exactly what he started taking better gigs, and now Max is playing gigs on the Millennium Falcon for the sequel trilogy crew. I'm gonna go back and check that after this, because I want to close that loop. So oh well, this has been a lot of fun. This is totally random. I don't do you have any other final thoughts, Jason, or that we're even just on New Year's resolutions?
Just doing something a little more lighthearted. Andor was so serious, and for the most part, it was a lot more serious than we're used to. So it was fun just thinking about the characters, not no stakes.
Right, and I think that's going to be a nice transition to Bad Batch, of course, as it's coming on, here pretty soon at the time of this recording. Not that there's no stakes in that as a show, but so far, we haven't lost a major character yet on there, and I don't know if they'll do that season 2 or not. So I think that's a big question we all have, is where are those guys, 10 years from now, 15, whatever the case is. So
yeah, we don't know where Omega is. We kept speculating we might see her in Book of Boba Fett, but she never showed up there. Will we see Omega in live action at some point? I don't know.
I think it'd be really cool to bring her into Ahsoka or something. Yeah, and I don't know how satisfying it is to have, like you could potentially have a show like this, and I don't think it would make a whole lot of sense, but there's other parts of the galaxy that are sort of farther out there, right? The Chiss ascendancy or unknown regions and that kind of stuff, but it's like, I don't know. I think we need to have them close by. So, all right, well, that's it from us for tonight, listeners. What did you think of this episode? Oh, I almost said this episode of Andor. I forgot to change my script. Oh, that's fun. Anyway, what did you think of this episode of The Secrets of Star Wars, and our speculation here about our New Year's resolution Star Wars character opportunities and suggestions? Please let us know one way or the other. We'd love to hear your feedback. We always love that. You can send us any feedback you want at starwars@sqpn.com. You can also visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. You can also find StarQuest on Facebook, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, and on Twitter at SQPN. And previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars can always be found by visiting sqpn.com/Star Wars. We'd like to make sure before we close out tonight, as always, we thank our Secrets of Star Wars patrons, including this week Matthew Q, Charles B, Matthew G, Rasmus M, and DR. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, please make sure you follow the show, Apple Podcasts, subscribe on there, Google Podcasts, Spotify, any podcast aggregator, you can find the show. I use Pocket Casts personally. It's on there as well. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. And just anywhere you can leave us a review or any rating really helps get the word out and spread the show around. So, and don't forget to get merchandise too. sqpn.com/merch. It's like everything over there. It's probably, well, this is after Christmas now that you're all hearing this, but hey, somebody's birthday's around the corner. So at any rate, we will be back next time to dig into the first 2 episodes of Bad Batch. They're putting out season 2, episodes 1 and 2. And so we'll be back on, let me get that date here quick. When does that drop? I think it's the 4th. The new show starts. Yeah, Wednesday the 4th is when the new season comes out, 4th of January, 2023. And then that means we will be back that next Tuesday, Tuesday the 10th of January. You'll hear our first breakdown of the Bad Batch. And then we'll be doing that weekly for several weeks. And we're still figuring a few little details out, but Mandalorian Season 3 is going to drop kind of right in the middle of Bad Batch's run. So I think we're going to jump over to that, and then we'll probably finish Bad Batch on the other side of Mandalorian, since that's such a flagship show. We want to give that its due. So until next time, Jason, Yuji, thank you so much for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too. And I'm Mike Creavey. Thank you all for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Hi everyone, this is Dom Bettinelli, CEO of StarQuest, with a special message. This past year, the StarQuest Network has continued to expand our mission of exploring the intersection of faith and pop culture through our many entertaining and informative programs. Now we need your generous financial support to keep producing the shows you love and to reach new audiences with more of the life-changing and uplifting programming we've been creating for more than a decade. That's why it's very important that we hear from you this Advent and Christmas, the time when nonprofits receive most of their support for the year. If you are already a supporter of StarQuest, we thank you and ask you to prayerfully consider increasing your support at this time. If you're not yet a supporter, please become one now. Every gift counts. Could you give $15 or even just $10 per month? Whatever level of support you can offer, please show your support for SQPN this Christmas. And remember that your gifts are tax deductible. Just go to sqpn.com/give. That's sqpn.com/give. May you have a blessed Christmas season.